welcome to a special episode of my Unity series. Today, creating an RPG similar to Undertale. And if you're familiar with the channel, you will know that last time I've made a whole bunch of tutorials in advance, followed up by a summary of all of them. But this time, I want to do things different, which means that in this video, I will show you how to create an RPG like Undertale with all its important mechanics at once. And then, if you're interested, I will make some additional tutorials where I go more into detail on some specific mechanics. But before we start, please make sure to subscribe if you haven't already. So in Unity, what I've already done is creating these three sprites. The first one being for a player character with the name Crisp, which is another kid in Frisk's neighborhood, and the second one being Torian, who is Toriel's secret brother. But please keep in mind that none of this is official lore, and that's because I just invented it. And the third one being just some tiles for a map. So first of all, let's change some of the import settings for our sprites so that they're displayed accordingly. So next up, I want to create the tile map for our in-game world, like I showed you in my previous video. So if you want to have some further details on it, please check it out. So that does already look better than I expected. Now let's continue by making Crisp an actual game object in our game. So now let's add our first script to our player so that he's able to move. So what this will do is to check which of our axes our player wants to move on, since we don't want Crisp to move diagonally, and then multiplying our input intensity with our player's speed and the time since the last frame, and inserting this one as our player's new velocity on the x-axis on the y-axis below here. And now as you can see, our player's movement is already working pretty well, including its collisions. And now, with that being completed, I'm gonna add a few animations to our player as well. So that does actually come a bit closer to the original. So this one works is that, depending on the direction we're headed, we play the corresponding animation that is stored below here. And if we don't move at all, we set our player back to its idle state. So, what to add next? Well, how about the battle system? So as you just saw, I've created two new sprites, one for my enemy encounter and one for a player within a fighting minigame, similar to what you're used to in Undertale. Next, I've come up with this battle scene that includes a camera, some sprites, one layout for a player's turn, including this text box and these two buttons, and one for our enemy's face, including this kind of arena and Crisp playable heart, and a health bar, and 3 bullets that are hidden at the moment. And now this is what our game looks like when being executed. So we've just entered the battle with this fearsome foe right here. So now we're able to choose between these two options. And as soon as we do that, the dodging begins. And as soon as we get hit, our health decreases. So now if I click this one again, our battle finishes. And we have to wait for our next encounter. And within our scripts, while we move, this timer progresses. And as soon as it crosses our cooldown, we want to reset it and get a new encounter. This battle script will then switch the active camera, reset some values, and then, depending on which button the player clicks, increase the damage variable or the mercy variable until it hits our goal, which will then end our battle and return to our main camera. or otherwise switch to the enemy's turn, which will play the attack as an animation, change the layout, and within a hard script, give our player's heart the ability to move as soon as it gets hit, suffer some damage. So what do you think? Why don't we add Torian to our game next? And now, with this guy on our side, let's create a simple dialogue system. So now let's see what happens. As soon as I get close to Torian and click left, then our text box shows up properly. We're not allowed to move anymore. And now I can click through this dialogue, and at the very end of it, it disappears again. Now the script for Torian works as follows. As soon as the player gets close enough to Torian and clicks left, we enable our text box and assign our dialogue strings to it as well, but only if it's currently not active and the player isn't in any type of dialogue. And now for our text box script and our enable function, we want to reset the progress within our dialogue, change the corresponding flag for the player with a delay specified right here, enable or disable the text box graphic components, and if we didn't deactivate the text box, we want to progress to the first line, which will then look like this. We'll make our active message the next one. If we're at the end, we want to disable our text box, and if not, we want to just display the current text line, and then we're able to progress through the dialogue by clicking left. So now, all in all, we've created a tiny game, similar to Undertale, that consists of a tilemap, a movable player character, an Undertale-like fighting system, and NPCs, not dialogue. So if you want to see me creating a 2D platforming game, please check out the playlist, and I'll see you next time.